The whys are more important than the whats. Problems are just another way to say opportunities. If you love what you do, it's not work. Here's a $2 bill. If you never spend it, you'll never be broke. Life is too short to drink crappy wine. As you climb the ladder of life, reach behind you and pull someone else up. Now, these were all things many people heard my father say many times. In 1974, a company newsletter had a favorite quote from him that said, "I see life as a series of opportunities, like a series of doors and rooms. If you don't choose to open doors, you back yourself into a closet." Ray Fogg Sr. certainly didn't pass up opportunities to open many doors and many rooms. First of all, think of all the places he lived. Between Cleveland to New York, Allentown to Albany, Rattlesnake Island to the Bahamas, Cabo San Lucas to Buenos Aires to Key West. He lived in at least 21 cities, 5 states, 4 countries, and 2 continents. He started opening doors at age 8, when he would board a ship running a route on Lake Erie between Cleveland and Detroit, selling newspapers to the passengers. This gave him his first experience of the Lake Erie Islands as the ship stopped at Put-in-Bay along the way. In grade school, he had a paper route business. He eventually built the business to 4,000 customers. So he enlisted the help of his classmates to help deliver the papers and collect the fees. He even hired his 6th grade teacher to keep the books for the thriving business. In his teens, he lived alone in a house in Conneaut while his family lived elsewhere to accommodate his father's job. The house was on the beach. Understand that. He lived alone while in high school in a house on the beach. He was a popular guy. While in his teens, he purchased a gas filling station. Because of war rationing on gasoline, he had to find other revenue streams. Remember, problems are just another way to say opportunities. So he sold lots of pop, ice cream, and candy. He was a teenager owning a filling station, meeting challenges to remain profitable. Oh, in his spare time from school. At 18 years old, he supervised the construction of his first bridge project. At 18 years old. But he kept looking for new doors to open. At the end of that summer, he drove a friend to Ohio University. He decided he liked it. So he opened another door to another room, stayed, and attended Ohio University himself. That was quite a fortunate incident for both him and the university. He became a star student of the civil engineering school as he was able to bring real-world experience into the classroom. Remember, he was the guy who had already built a bridge. He was the first engineering undergraduate to perform a funded research project. He started the first student chapter of the Ohio Society of Professional Engineers at OU. Then he played a key role in forming student chapters at other colleges. He went on to form a state council, and he was its first president. Throughout his life, he gave back to Ohio University, serving on the Civil Engineering Advisory Board, the O-Right Board, the Ohio University Foundation Board, as well as many others. He was the recipient of the Ohio University Medal of Merit, the recipient of an honorary doctorate degree, and an alumnus of the year. If you only considered his lifetime of education and service at Ohio University, you would think that would be enough. But he was just getting started. Ray Fogg Sr. served his country as an ROTC officer while at OU, then as the base engineer at Turner Air Force Base in Albany, Georgia. During this time, he had a fairly infamous encounter with General Curtis LeMay. Now, I won't tell that story here, but it resulted in LeMay asking my father to join his general's staff. Thankfully, I think for the rest of the world, my father declined, because perhaps if he had dedicated his life to a military career, the world would have likely missed what it was about to get. While in the Air Force, his pilot buddies offered to teach him to fly, so he purchased a small single-engine tail dragger. That led to a lifetime of pilot stories. He flew everything from that small tailor craft to a DC-3. If you love what you do, it's not work. Of course, he had an epic business career. After working for a couple of other contractors following his Air Force service, he obtained an Armco metal building dealership. In 1959, he started Ray Fogg Building Methods. He was only 29 years old. At first, to accommodate selling more buildings, he added engineering and erection services. Because he believed the whys are more important than the whats, he listened to his customers and realized they needed him to add finance and leasing services, then development, property management, and brokerage services. He developed at least 7 business parks, built over 4,000 projects, and developed over 3 million square feet for his own portfolio. And he was CEO of well over 50 companies. Here's a $2 bill. If you never spend it, you'll never be broke. He had 3 children, 2 stepchildren, a grandchild, 2 step-grandchildren, a great step-granddaughter, numerous nieces, nephews, grandnieces, grandnephews, many of whom he paid their tuition to attend college. Life is too short to drink crappy wine. Well, he raced antique cars across the country twice, from Disneyland to Disney World, and from Disneyland to Boston. The latter race landed him on the front page of hundreds of newspapers throughout the world. He once rode a motorcycle from Fort Wayne to Cabo St. Lucas. He had boats and airplanes too numerous to mention. He was a Commodore of the Bordeaux Association, attending their meetings in France, and had a consummate wealth of wine knowledge. Rachel once asked a group of OU engineers if they could please research a way of preventing my father from thinking he has to buy all the wine there is. As you climb the ladder of life, reach behind you and pull someone else up. Now, somewhere in these packed 91 years, he always found ways to give back to his fellow man. As I mentioned before, he paid for many people to receive their education. He served on the boards of numerous charitable organizations, including Cleveland Christian Home, Cleveland Interchurch Council, Christian Theological Seminary, and the National Benevolent Association, as well as many others. For most people, that would already be enough giving. Did he stop there? No. He went on to put his money, time, and sweat into many humanitarian projects too numerous to mention, so I'll tell you about just a few. In the mid-1970s, in response to a pastor's prayer, he loaded his airplane full of supplies and flew to Honduras, which had just been struck by a devastating hurricane. He flew many dangerous relief missions. Many pilots would say that some of the missions were undoable. Once the folks in charge learned of his engineering prowess, they convinced him his time was being wasted as a pilot. They needed him to do more. He ended up helping to rebuild houses for an entire town, cleverly designing a process using raw materials on the ground and the labor of the many displaced men. He continued and rebuilt their church as well. While in Honduras, neighboring Guatemala suffered a severe earthquake, so he went there. He saved many lives, helping to determine which buildings, including hospitals, needed to be immediately evacuated before the next aftershock. He designed a small manufacturing plant to make the bricks needed to rebuild. He designed structures and trained the local men to rebuild over 35,000 houses. In the 1980s, the United Nations enlisted his help in Somalia to evaluate problems with their relief workers becoming ill. He designed changes to their water wells, living conditions, and cooking methods, as well as helping to improve the local farming methods. Similar stories could be told about his work in the Bahamas, Haiti, and other places where he was asked to help and answered the call. Did I mention that all of his personal humanitarian work was done at his own expense, always refusing to be compensated for even his travel expenses so that he would never feel beholden to any organization and instead always feel free to go wherever he thought he could be of the most service? 91 years, filled with this unusual childhood, life at Ohio University, service to the country, devotion to family, success in business, love for flying, boating, racing, and wine, and setting an example through humanitarian work, simply making an enormous positive impact on people literally all over the world. In my father's last years, I watched as his body began to fail the wonderful mind and spirit that made him so extraordinary. As difficult as it was for his loved ones to see, I'm not sure any of us can imagine how difficult it was from his perspective. I mean, to be this man, held back by his physical limitations, to still see all of the series of doors in all of the rooms, yet be unable to choose to open them. I believe, after all of the many doors to the many rooms he chose to open in his lifetime, he finally found himself unwillingly backed into the closet he had avoided his entire life. But now I like to think he has been liberated again. For once, someone else climbing the ladder must have reached back and pulled him up to a place where he has been freed of his physical limitations and is again walking through a series of rooms, opening doors to see what opportunity lies ahead. And you know, somehow, he will find a way to reach back from the ladder and pull us along with him.